Welcome back. I'm glad you're still with us. It's 23, not 23, but 27 minutes after 8 o'clock. Time now for Postscript. We're looking at the complexities in delivering information on politics and other topical issues and trends as they happen in the country. Media coverage of disasters is also on our radar, and we shall be seeing how we shape public responses to some of the stories that you see and follow on television, radio, newspapers, and any other platform out there. We've just spoken about the streaming platform there in our tech note, and I think it's one because NTV and Spark Television have been onboarded further by MTN and Yo TV. In studio, I have with me Peter Sserugo. He's a reporter, and we'll be hearing about his own experiences, but most importantly, the how of political information and how it's delivered. Many thanks for joining us this Friday.
Thank you, Chris.
We're glad to have you on board.
I'm so glad to be here.
No doubt. There's a lot that is happening in the country. Sometimes as we deliver and publish and broadcast the news, we become too involved into it that we forget that the people who are consuming it need a little bit of time in order to imbibe on that information, take it in, but most importantly, find meaning in order to make their own decisions. What's your take on the issues happening in the country before we go into a look at the nitty-gritty or the detail of each one of them? What's the state of the country according to you?
Thank you, Chris. As you introduced me, I'm Peter Sserugo, and when you look at the state right now, the country is purely and but not so much buried in politics. Yeah. You know, from the newsroom, what everything rotates about mostly politics. Yeah. To the extent that even something that you might think that it is maybe human, be it the tragedy in each case, you may find at the end of the day, it's going to get into the aspect of politics. Yeah. But, well, when you look at what's happening, you cannot fail to say sorry and send condolences and also to, sympathies to the people who lost their dear ones and property in the tragedy that happened in Kiteezi here. I think that has covered so much of our country because you cannot neglect a tragedy that really costed lives that goes to past 30 and still others.
Fears are many more.
Fears are still on board that maybe others are still missing. But generally, Uganda, now you may not get surprised of so much. It's a script. It's a script that happened today, tomorrow, and all that. Before you hear, you send your condolences to Kiteezi, you hear something is coming in Ududa, something is coming in, and that's the same thing.
And that when you say that, before you are done with one thing, then there's another that's coming up, and your supervisor and the editors and producers are telling you, hey, put that away or leave it for so and so, get onto this one. It reveals a lot of complexities in news coverage. Absolutely. And the need for a reporter to be always on the go. Absolutely. The ability to be flexible, because you might wake up knowing you're going to do an update on Kiteezi, and as you're coming to office, you're told, hey, leave Kiteezi for Chris. Please, there is something on Entebbe Road. Can you rush there? That ability to quickly pivot between stories that are potentially traumatic sometimes. How do journalists deal with this?
It goes back to classroom. When you went to school and the day you decided that I'll do journalism, that's when that's the day you take a stand.
That's right.
That I'll be everywhere. You wake up. For us, we don't have a formal agenda of that day. Yeah. You wake up today, say, now, Lord, I'm going to face the world. I don't know where I'm going.
That's right.
So the moment you have that, you have to just have the concept and ready to shift your mind and your ability to any situation that come through, and you think that the public need to know about it.
That's right.
You have to have that ability to understand something more quicker than your public, so that you can inform them about the same. So that one will mean that as a journalist, one, you have to keep tabs on what is happening.
What's happening, yeah.
Even if it's not happening that then or that day, but you must be sure that maybe at a certain point in time, you're going to face it, and you have to tell people about it. For them, they will not want to know.
That's right.
Whether you know, whether you don't know. And people will call you, Peter, I have heard this.
Yeah.
How is it? They don't know whether you know it or you don't know, but they expect you to be knowing it. So that versatility, I think, is what must work out for all journalists if you to deliver, especially in this the field of Africa, where we do cover almost everything.
That's right.
You may not be specific. Today you're in politics, tomorrow you may be in health and education. Basically, because of our environment and how things are happening so quick in this country.
Okay. With regard to the developments in Kiteezi, there was a lot at play. To the average editor, when this happened, there was, I think, I don't know how to, somebody might completely misunderstand. When Kiteezi happens, or a disaster like that happens, what a producer and an editor is seeing is a plethora of stories. And they're like, this, the other, Chris will do this, Peter will do this, Isaac will go for this. And then you're like, hey, have you settled to first think about the impact of those who are affected? Have you thought about them like, bam, this is happening, people are losing lives. But here you are, you're like, oh, we need this angle, we need the other angle, we need the other angle, because that is the blanket role that you have to be able to bring out these stories. But I don't know whether you have been able to go to Kiteezi yourself, or have...
I reached there less than 2 hours when that incident
2 hours after the incident.
Yes.
That should have been around 10 o'clock,
yes,
so to speak.
Yes.
What was the situation like?
Chris, I'm a journalist, and I've been in journalism for quite some time now. But when I reached Kiteezi at around 10, armed with my microphone, tripod, camera, I reached somewhere, though I'm a professional, and I thought maybe I'm doing something that is wrong. That maybe two ideas popped into my head. From the news coverage to either I should get a hoe or a spade.
To be a fast responder.
To be a fast responder. Because with my ears, I had people screaming from the murder robbers, calling for hope.
Munyambe.
Munyambe. But what you have is a microphone. And you think of what the person whose relative is still in the robbers, thinking about the microphone you are holding. I reached a certain extent and felt that maybe I'm not human enough. Two, another strange idea that came through. I was like, maybe I should drop this microphone, go storm Kiteezi.
You were angry at the inaction.
Angry. Go storm Kiteezi. Yes. Go storm Kiteezi because I was aware of all the recommendation that has been made about that area. I went there early this year, and I had the outcries, I had the complaints, and then I saw what happened. I said, now, am I still going to ask these people why this happened when I asked them in early this year the same thing? But thank God, I got the courage after one lady told me, you are from NTV, at least make a post somewhere that we need excavators
right now,
right now. Then that's when I woke up and I said, oh, I got something to do. I may not get up a hoe.
You might not dig.
I may dig. I may not go to storm Kiteezi because it may not help now.
Yeah.
But if I share this information of what is needed right now, then I may be able to do something and impact and maybe help at the end of the day. But it was a trying moment, because you looked around people who are gathering, and then you ask yourself, what am I going to ask these people? Because from the corridors and conversation talks, and street talks, you could hear people talking about, I have lost my mother, my 5 kids.
Because
my family,
houses, what?
Yes, my family is gone. And then you ask yourself, so are you, even the facial expression, you see someone's emotions and feelings. So you're not about to ask this person of how he or she feels.
Of course.
You see.
That would be insensitive.
That would be insensitive.
A man is sorrowful, crying, and you're asking, how are you feeling?
How are you feeling? and even asking the number. How many people have you lost?
How many?
But when you looked at the magnitude of danger of this tragedy, you may realize the pain, and also go back to think that maybe something must be done. One, there was an excavator that reached at around 11, but it made it to the scene to start doing the excavation past midday. Why? Because there were no access roads. And then you could think, but maybe if coming here today to report about this matter, I would have come earlier and report that there are no access roads in this place.
Roads again. At that point, you felt guilty.
I felt guilty.
You had missed a point.
That I had missed a point earlier. I would have come earlier and report about the absence of access roads, so that today, if this incident happened and this story earlier, maybe they would have done the roads.
Sure.
And the excavator would make it on time and save maybe people who are still alive in this.
But then again, you realize at that point that that is a bigger problem, and one that has been around, a lack of urban planning policy. Absolutely. Where anybody builds whatever they can.
Whatever they can.
You know, that's also another challenge, and you can't deal with it within the emotions running through at any one particular moment in time.
But lastly, as time went on, they started exhuming these people, the bodies. I didn't see anyone who was got alive from there. That was unfortunately. At least I would have got that image on my eyes and brain to understand that at least I saw someone being saved. But I didn't see one. Or I saw children. Children being innocent, without their shirts. And I remembered when we were still young, we used to sleep without shirts. And I knew these kids were sleeping innocently. Mothers and young youth, energetic, who are looking at, maybe you think they have something to add on this country. They were waiting to wake up and go make ends meet. Absolutely. In a system that has been made deliberately dysfunctional for them by the government. You may say that. And then they die. And they die. In such circumstances. I looked at that situation and I felt, well, this is news. But the only impact that this news I'm covering today may make is when they make this system, the systems, to put measures that avert such scenarios to happen again. But if we did stories, the number of stories we did, and if such things continue to happen, then we would have done everything in vain. And I just wish that those responsible, they can revisit these stories. That is right. Understand the concept and all the errors, correct them, and then maybe we can avoid such tears in the future. Wow. It's a very poignant perspective, and something that takes us straight to the scene of tragedy and reporting of disasters. So this particular incident is just one of many that many reporters encounter within their career. Some go for 20 years, 25, and somebody who has dealt with disaster, for example, if you're reporting 3 disaster stories every year, how is your thinking 15 years into the job?
And this one relates to how we are managing mental health aspects within the media space. Are there mechanisms that are put in place to talk to us, to help us deal with some of the challenges that might come? Me, maybe I was a young man at the time, 2010, when the bombings happened in Chadondo. I was with a colleague called Paul Chirungi, and we got on a bike, raced there to report the news live, because we were watching the World Cup at Capital Radio. That's a radio station in Kololo. But having to see bodies being lifted off the ground onto a stretcher, and then the body is chopped into two, you leave the torso because the bomb has ripped. I returned to studio, and instead of broadcasting, I told the guy, I'm like, can we do this tomorrow? You know, mentally I collapsed. And the next day I was able to collect myself, and we spoke about what exactly happened. But by then, a whole set of other reporters had gone there, and they had more compelling versions. But for me, as a young man who had basically stayed in the studio, anchoring news and doing interviews, it was a bit of a hard one. But thank you for the perspective. It does help those who are watching understand exactly what we go through. Now, the politics of the day, it cannot be avoided. Kiteezi has become a political issue right now, in terms of how much money goes into maintaining the place, why it has not been decommissioned up to now, and why we only have that an entire country as the major dump site, which is supposed to be a landfill, but it isn't. The politics of the day seems to be eating into just about everything. When we report the politics, how do we put the policymakers, the ones that are supposed to make the decisions that should avert such disaster, on the spot? Are we doing things in vain? Are we seeing anything that you can say? For example, this year our reports have been able to condition this kind of change in how KCCA acts, in how the Ministry of Energy, in how this department does. Is there anything that you can write home about, something we can hold on to and say, this is what our reporting has done?
Yeah, Chris, we cannot say that our work just goes like that in vain. No, our work impacts, and it really influences sometimes what happens in this country.
That's right.
But like I may say that if journalists were to go an extra mile and do a whip themselves, this country would
oh my God, yes, trust me.
This country would be a better place. Why? Because for us, we have that first-hand information. We go deep into it.
That's
because
right.
we have to first understand it, then also present it in a way that the public can understand it. But going further to understand whether they have understood it the way we wanted them to understand it, that's another point.
That's another point.
That's another point. That's another point. That's another point. Because for example, I'll give an example of the Daily Monitor, where I also write.
Yeah.
Daily Monitor will do good stories.
That's right.
They will make some topics in the public domain. But what's funny, even good stories and good topics that would spark serious debates in this country, they are at the end of the day turned into be in a funny way, just to laugh about.
Yeah.
Something to laugh about. Someone will praise Daily Monitor, but in a comic way, not to act, not to add any other information he might have about the same.
That is right.
So to push this cause further, but we'll just laugh and say, Monitor mukolera abantu.
And it ends there?
And it ends there.
In your heart of hearts, you're thinking, I wish it could be more, you could be able to do something.
Yes, I just wish that, okay, I have done my part, I have presented to you something. But this is a newsroom which may have even less than 100 people. But if they have managed to gather this information,
that's right,
in that detailed way, I'm very sure the public has even more
information that they can offer
about that same, that they can share. If today Daily Monitor's headline is about the sickening health system.
Sure, yeah. If my producer can help us, the Daily Monitor has high health bills sickening Ugandans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, can we have the people coming out about the same? Those people who have gone through the same, because you may find that in that story, we have around 3 or 4 people that we managed to reach out to talk to.
Yeah.
But they are in thousands. Someone may not understand the weight of this until we have thousands of them.
Yeah, there we are. High health bills sicken Ugandans, and it's something that I was able to highlight earlier, is that we are just one hospital bill usually away from financial ruin. You go to the health centers, and when you're told what the bill is, you have to call somebody to explain to them that, man, things are tight, you know.
And those are a few lucky ones who have someone to call. Those are a few lucky ones. So, and even those who are not lucky, and unfortunately, they won't even get access to that paper. And that's the that's the most devastating thing about this thing. That those who have faced that firsthand, again, may not have access to that paper. But I wish people may come out with those bills, so that we can push this cause further to cause
the change
that we need in the system. And so it has been about parliament, about what, everything. But I think we are doing good as journalists.
That's right.
But we need another hand. That's the public.
The public.
They need to join, because media works for people to kolera abantu. So if people abandon us, we may not be able to deliver our agenda or what we need, because we want to see better and things changing. To be proud that Daily Monitor highlighted this, and something has changed. People are getting services at a lower cost.
That's right.
But that can be done when someone from my home district, Chiboga, joins the hand, when someone from Kweni, when someone from all regions joins the hand to say, this is it.
All right. In light of that, I won't be fearful in calling on the civil society organizations to help the public reduce the health bills. I was talking earlier about the fact that what most medical people, there's doctors, nurses, and everyone else, including those that work within the receptions of the health facilities, are hell-bent on ensuring that you do as many tests as possible in order for you to pay up later. You know, you know you've gone to the hospital, you have some fever, joint pains, a guy is telling you to test this, test the other, test the other. At the end of the day, you have 175,000 Uganda shillings. You haven't gotten treatment. And you're like, now what do I do? You know, those are the problems that we face. But Peter Sserugo, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Your perspective has emboldened our understanding of what you and many of our colleagues go through when reporting the news. I do hope that whoever has been watching, you can also have an idea of exactly what these guys go through. He spoke about the fact that many times broadcasters, journalists don't have a day's agenda, as in this is what is going to happen. You go and then you have a whole set of aspects to work on, and then either somebody chooses, Chris work on this, Peter work on this, Isaac work on the other. So when, for example, somebody tells you that, well, I went from home, I didn't know I'll end up in Mubende, there is news in Mubende, and that's what. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
And that's it for our postscript. But my man, Stephen Mbide, standing by, will be joining us very shortly after this break. Stay with us.